Welcome back to the Sustainability Podcast. My name is Gaven Simon, and today we are on day 3 of the ARC Forum. This morning, we heard a beautiful presentation from Katheryn Scott. Kate, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you just give us a little bit about your background and what you spoke about today during your keynote presentation?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks for having me. So my background, I'm a material scientist by training, and then a management consultant by profession, and found my way into the government. So have been with the Department of Energy for the last year and a half, and as one of my core projects was doing market research on industrial decarbonization. And we published a series of 3 liftoff reports that you can find at liftoff.energy.gov on industrial decarbonization. And so a cross-cutting report, a chemicals and refining report, and a cement report, and gave the key highlights during the keynote today.
Beautiful. It was a great presentation, great visuals. You were so well spoken, so congratulations once again.
Thanks.
I also do a little bit of research on energy regulations and how these regulations are nudging the private sector or giving them that carrot or that stick approach in regulating the private sector and kind of guiding them on what the future outlook is on the energy transition. What role does the government play in the energy transition? And maybe we can just keep it specific to the United States.
Great. At the DOE, we've talked a lot about this transition being private sector led, but government enabled. And so What do we mean by that? Well, in the IRA, so the Inflation Reduction Act, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, there are billions of dollars of direct grants and loan authorities. There's even more in terms of tax credits. But those billions need to translate to trillions of dollars of investment from the private sector. And so we know that money has to be catalytic and be smart about where we use it to drive on follow investment from the private sector.
Awesome. So every single day, I run an energy regulation roundup. I do this monthly blog, and I try to keep up with all of the projects that are being announced from the DOE. It's every single day there's another green webpage where it's like blank and blank money to this and this great funding project, but they're all at different scales. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really interesting, something to highlight that the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law are doing. Why do you think it's important for these projects to have these different scales of funding and projects that the DOE is providing to the private sector?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. My director, Dr. Vanessa Chan, she's the Chief Commercialization Officer of the Department of Energy and the leader of the Office of Technology Transition. We talk about this as a research, development, demonstration, and deployment continuum. And so the DOE, especially with the money from the IRA and the BIL, these 2 big spending laws, has actually reorganized to support multiple phases of this commercialization continuum. We have our R&D sector, which is led by our Undersecretary of Science and Innovation. Okay. And then we have our Undersecretary of Infrastructure that focuses on demonstration and deployment. Nice. And each of those different, I call them business units, they're undersecretary divisions, has a focus. And so you'll get the smaller R&D grants focused on lower technology readiness projects out of our science and innovation team.
Okay.
But you now have bigger grants in the tens of millions, hundreds of millions that are coming out of the Undersecretary of Infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And our job at OTT, Office of Technology Transitions, is to connect that and make it so that we're really moving American invested technologies through that commercialization continuum. So we've tried to make our programs target different pieces of it.
Amazing. It's essential, it's exciting, and you guys are consistent. It's every single day I'm seeing something new.
I still am sorry about the post-Christmas deadlines.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. So today, what are you excited about? Why should we be excited now? So I think we've heard a lot of buzzwords about sustainability, but in the past 2 years, there's been a recent push and a nudge of an excitement of just an increased usage of sustainability and an increased investment in the clean energy transition and decarbonization space. So why now?
Yeah, we have a couple of reasons that we're really excited about it at the Department of Energy, and I'll focus it on industrial decarbonization, which was the subject of our talk this morning, it's really about a couple different things. One, we have the money today. So as I said, billions of dollars, tens of billions in order to do this and to accelerate it. That's one of our goals, is to bring investments, and our David Crane, the Undersecretary of Infrastructure, has said this, to bring investments forward with this money that wouldn't have happened. So we want folks to engage on how they can get started and use our capital. The next is really, we're starting to see low carbon demand for industrial products. So there's initiatives like First Movers Coalition, which are private companies that are committing to buying low carbon materials by 2030. And there are federal initiatives like the Federal Buy Clean, which had $2 billion to buy low carbon cement, steel, asphalt, and glass. And that's really catalyzing movement. And then there's a bit of time pressure. So the last piece is, if we want to reach our net zero goals by 2050, we need to get started with what's available today, and also be investing for the future in the emissions that are either expensive or impossible to abate with today's technologies. And what I shared on the keynote is there is money to be made today. There's billions of dollars of 10% plus internal rate of return projects that these companies should be investing in, thinking about, and using to solidify their position in this kind of next transition of industries.
100%. I think you're seeing really right now the people who are prepared taking advantage and underprepared. And the time is of the essence. Time is not going to stop. Earlier this week, I presented that between the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act, I think it was a 41% decrease in emissions by 2030, which is still 9% below that 50% target. But hopefully we'll have state mandated regulations that will bridge that gap. So I think you said it completely correct. Time is of the essence, 2050 net zero target. And also we're dealing with multiple different increases of natural disasters that we're facing every summer. Every other week, I think we're hearing something. So it's time to take action now. And I just want to say,
and we're seeing private sector first movers like taking advantage of that and winning in this market. We heard from Dow on the main stage today, and they have nuclear demonstration projects with Department of Energy to decarbonize their heat. We have Nucor taking big positions in some of their steel. And a lot of this, I will say, is also driven by our European counterparts who are creating policies that are incentivizing lower carbon products. So a carbon border adjustment mechanism that if an American company was exporting to Europe, they would have to be subject to potential tariffs based on the carbon intensity of their product. So
I think we just saw that the United Kingdom just also passed their first version of the CBAM. So obviously everybody needs to get on the bandwagon, and we're super excited to have you here to express and explain what's happening. And I think the audience members that we have here at ARC, we really appreciate your effort, and thank you so much for joining us on day 3 of the ARC Forum.
Thanks so
Kate.
much.